Hey everyone, um, I'm Birdo. I'm going to be doing this interview with Sax and Louie. I was a creator on Fortnite, and then I started developing some games in UEFN, and that's my intro. And yeah, let's give intros all around.
Sure. I'm Sax. I head up the UEFN and the Fortnite creative and like sort of all things creator
Hmm.
at Epic. So creator economy, Discover, UEFN platform, like all sort of all the components that make up everyday's life in Fortnite. And a lot of the efforts around making an ecosystem that um, that can grow to be like the size that we always wanted it to be, like to invite every creator of every size in and to confidently invest, build businesses, like all those things. So um, it's an exciting day talking about data. So
And I'm Louis. I work closely with Sax. I more specifically on the economy side of the house, everything related to analytics side of the house. So top of mind for me all the time. How do we enable creators to monetize in the space? How do we enable creators to understand better how the ecosystem work and what the dynamics are there? And of course, have been working away on this data API that we're on to chat about.
Awesome. Yeah. So for the chat, if you have any questions, put a Q or question before that. We're going to try to compile them. You can ask questions about the data API and the new article, Discover article they just made today. So it's all free game for later. But the first segment of this interview, I want to talk about the big data API that's out now. And so we're going to just start from very basics. I had a lot of people that don't even know what an API is, don't even know what it stands for. So I was wondering if you guys could answer what is an API and how can some of these devs that don't even know what it is, how's it going to be used in their day to day as a developer, Fortnite developer?
Yeah, it's funny. This rings like a consulting interview. What does this describe what that API is? At the most basic level, I'd say it's just a way to really simply retrieve and pass information to systems. A common analogy that's always out there is like if you're at a fast food drive-through and you see a really simple menu and you have a speakerphone, you can pass your order there. There'll be a waiter inside that coordinates everything related to passing an order in the kitchen and all that stuff. So as a consumer on the other side, it's a really simple interface and you get things back out of it really simply. And in our case, what that translates to, what we're passing through is data around engagement of our games, retention of our games. So you could ask simply how many players are playing this type of game right now and get out a really simple answer without knowing the inner mechanics.
I think we like the API. It's hard to get super excited about an API. So hopefully people can get excited about the outcomes of the API. I think structured access, like open access to data in every aspect of life generally is a good thing. I just think the gaming industry is generally not historically like been it's been very we haven't been building like platforms like long-lasting ecosystems, and I think the object at Epic is to foster long-term investment and sort of long-term trust in an ecosystem. And the best way we believe to build trust is through transparency, and data is a key part of that.
100%. So this is like a huge step forward with transparency. And I know when you were first talking about giving the stats to Battle Royale got you super excited. Can you tell us how long like getting this API like was in the pipeline, like the history of it? Was there like a lot of challenges to get it through?
So let's start with like when we started with like we published CCU of every island. I think we started 2.5 years ago, something like that. Um, it was something I was really passionate about, and people in the team. But like that, even that was very controversial, right? Because like it's it's like I think to some extent we're so accustomed to like data is secret, right? Like it's like my success is secret and only to me. But the truth is, like, so when we went to all the first party teams, like the Battle Royale team, and said we're gonna show like how many people are playing Battle Royale. What if we have a bad season? Well, you have a bad season, you'll do better next season. Like, and I think that like we know internally, like if we're having a bad season, like what harm is that from saying that like publicly? and on the flip side, when we have huge seasons, like does that help you? We believe it helps to see like where do people go? They vote with their feet in an ecosystem where you can go and play whatever you want to whenever you want to. It's a good thing to show like where people end up, right? No different than in our public life. Like if we go to the airport and one counter has like everybody and the other airline like has like no one, like that's probably a sign. So
Yeah,
so
definitely.
we try to just make common sense. Like, can we, is there a way we can just show more about like what makes players tick, where they like, and so that was 2 3 years ago. Since then, we've been sort of thinking through, yeah, but how do we want to take the next step? And I would say, in earnest, we got started in defining the API, Louis, November last year, I think, something like
Something
that.
like that. Yeah, that's right.
November, December last year, where we said, you know what, the timing is right. We believe we have all the components that this makes sense. And we can talk about some of those components, but like in essence, we were just ready for it, we feel like.
And so part of that challenge was that initial reaction, as Sex was saying, of well, exposing more information, more data. What does that mean from our side? But part of the challenge as well is making sure that the data that's coming out the other side is as high fidelity, as high quality as we want it to be. Probably the worst thing we could do would be putting out data that is just flat out inaccurate. Then you're actually pushing down a path to not only is there not the information out there, you're actually potentially leading people on the wrong path when it comes to making decisions on how to engage in the ecosystem. So that was part of the challenge too, is making sure that what we're putting out there in a way that is super easy to consume is also a very high standard for us in terms of what is actually going on.
Yeah. So the first version was like just exposing and create a portal, and we thought we were gonna go, I don't think that won't really do what we wanted to do. Then it was like the sort of aggregation sites should be able to consume it. Well, if there's a sign in and all sorts of like onerous things, like we're just not going to see the adoption of using the data in the way we want to. So part of the challenge was to find a way that we feel is still like scales, but like anybody can connect to the data source and start producing insights, basically.
Yeah, so this is a huge step. So just to reiterate for everyone, the data exposed for every island will be shown for minutes, minutes per player, plays, favorites, recommends, or used to be likes, peak CCU, unique players, day one retention, and day seven retention. So is there like a plan to keep enhancing this, like in the short term that you can share with us? Like you said that we went from Portal to this. Is there a next step that you can tell us about?
Yeah, I don't think we claim to have solved the whole puzzle in one shot here. So there'll be iterations that we're already hearing quite a lot from reactions to this, saying, "Oh, it would be really cool to have the breakdown by language. It would be really cool to have a breakdown by the type of input that's going into it. Is it a mobile phone? Is it a platform?" So there's a lot that's brewing, and I think that's really exciting to us. That's like, okay, so there is appetite, there's demand for this to actually continue to grow here. So we're in a full listening mode right now on what does make the next part of the docket, and of course eyeing our next release on June 9th there, where we're going to be opening up to the rest of the ecosystem.
Just going kind of with what you just said, were you guys surprised by all this? To me, like I've only seen 99% positive feedback. Was that a little surprising?
It
Uh,
just shows me. So I'll start take a stab at that. It just shows us we should have done this a long time ago. So, like, um, I it surprised me a little bit, like, and but I think I'm very happy that we're aligned with like broadly with our community of creators, in that this is a positive step forward. We started with first party data and like with our internal data first. Like there's a couple of reasons. One is to make sure it actually works. Two is to show that we understand that like when we want it to be accurate, we want it to like to actually work, and then this gives us a chance to make sure that before we open it like to the whole ecosystem, but also that Epic is not special, that we believe that we benefit as much as anybody else from the like everybody being able to see like what is that makes battle royale so like so sticky, like what are the actual metrics for like for the core game that has powered Epic now for 7 years. I think that's really it's not just fascinating, but there's a lot to learn from it from the community. So part of that is the saying, look, there's no secret sauce. Like it's just really hard work and sort of really working hard for to make sure players love what we make. And I don't think that's that different. But there's still a ton to learn about like when we introduce a new season, like what happens to all our metrics, like what is it that goes on during launch week, what happens to the rest of the ecosystem, like all those things you can see now. That's super exciting for us.
Awesome. Yeah. I guess I was gonna go take some API questions about the API and then go into afterwards the new discovered uh, article that you guys wrote that is even more transparent about how things work, exactly what gets you in each discovered row. So that's pretty cool. So I'll just go through some of the APIs. Lionheart on Twitter said, will the API be forward-looking, or will you allow us to look like backwards, like a year ago for some of these islands, or is it just kind of starting on that June date set for all islands?
Yeah, I think for the time being, what we're trying to optimize for is this to be really lightweight, really quick, and give a nice pulse of what is happening in the ecosystem at a point in time. I think we're considering what it would take to go back a year, go back 2 years. I think that's not part of the immediate plans though, but really trying to optimize for yeah anything real time here. We're also specifically designing it as an API so that if you do want to start aggregating this information and keeping track over time and building a database. So this is how it's evolved over the course of the next month, 2 months, 3 months. You can do that, and we're encouraging you to do so.
Awesome.
I
Um,
think the biggest thing there is um, what are we weighing? We're weighing that like on principle that generally we announce something and then from then point forward that's how things are, rather than sort of saying we're redefining the how you're competing like on a backwards basis. So I think if there was like a universal if we believe that it was universally accepted that that would be a good idea, yeah, we could look at that. Right now, we're really focused on we're going to announce and then on a forward-looking basis, uh, start showing the data.
awesome. Yeah. Um, and then this one's not exactly on the Big Day API, but it's APIs in general. Are there any plans to integrate like third-party APIs through UEFN and Verse in the future, or whitelist some sites, or any any of that?
What's an example?
Just using outside space, like using a different, not through Epic Games, like a third-party API through in your game to maybe to
Oh, I
show
see. Yeah.
leaderboard, to show anything like that.
Um,
This was like not
yes.
exactly in
So
big
yeah,
data,
no.
but
So
yeah.
like it's not a simple answer. It's conceivable. Yeah, I think there's a very it hasn't been a focus, and a lot of it has to do with security, obviously. That we run our servers and our servers run in a very lockdown mode for a lot of different reasons. Um, and and third-party APIs makes it feel it's it's an obvious attack vector.
Yeah.
Um, so we try to stay away from it. That said, what we have discussed like for example like content libraries, um, like somehow finding out a way to federate access to content libraries and stuff like that. But like general API access, like through some sort of port opening, no, I think that's very unlikely we could do that at scale, just because of the
Yeah,
security concerns.
definitely see that. I guess I've seen this question a couple times. Is there going to be like a first party platform? So instead of like going to the third party platform to see this, to see all this data organized without getting requests or doing request for the data like on your own,
Yeah,
or through a third party site?
we considered that too. I think the sequence that we took here is to say the most flexible and the most powerful way that we can expose this is to ship this out as an API and have people interpret this in the way that they want to use it. I think building something ourselves, I think we could consider if we see enough appetite there and we see enough demand there. So far, I'm not getting that signal, but it's something that we definitely can consider.
I think like in truth, like Fortnite GG or FCHQ or some of the other aggregations that do a really good job. They're very um they're very fast on when we released. Like I'm always amazed. Like we released like creator like the amount of followers like that we had not too long ago, and within a day it's up and reflected in the stats on Fortnite GG. And I just doubt we can be as fast and as useful as like the best we
Yeah.
can do is extending the data like in a broad way and focusing on just people can consume it any way they want, use it any way they want, feed it to whatever GPT that they want to for insights or like we couldn't do that that fast. It's just not possible. So instead, like we're working to get ourselves out of the way and just have people like produce their own insights with the data we provide.
That
I
makes
think
sense.
that
Yeah.
last point is the key part, is that we believe that we would get in the way if we start going down this road. We would actually make things slower and harder to use rather than make this super open there.
I think so. Like one of the things we did a bunch of experiments to see what how should we do this. Like one of the first attempts we did when we started when Louis just like we started doing the product definitions of this was maybe we should do aggregated data and just focus on genres and just sort of instead of doing it at the island level, do it at some sort of aggregate level. Um, and we couldn't come up with a definition that worked. Like because when we said like show me how successful sports games work in Fortnite, then like from between meta tagging and sort of like weird modes, but like a t like um we could just couldn't like just a simple genre definition. We just couldn't find one that would make sense where I could ask, hey, should I make a soccer game? Like there was no way to do that easily. Like really you need to, as the creator, say, I want to compare myself to this basket of islands and I want to look at what makes these successful. Like what common traits do they have? And do I see an opportunity for me to go and make a game here that can make a difference, right? Um, and we just couldn't come up with anything. Like when we look at Tycoon, well, that genre is so huge that it just didn't make any sense. We couldn't come up with any insights from it. So instead we said, well, we're just going to make it super granular instead. And people can come up with their own groupings and their own genre definitions and kind of make their own decisions from that. I think it just seemed like a better decision for us.
And in fact, even when we were trying to mock up what this would look like internally on our side, say what would a dashboard look like, we fundamentally disagreed between like the engineering team, this part of the business, fundamentally disagreed on how we want to see this data sliced and what is the most useful view. And that was kind of a key moment where like, right, we will be in the way if we start getting too opinionated about what this ends up being visualized like. Let's
Yeah.
give it into a raw feed and see where we go from here.
No, that makes perfect sense. I don't think it'd be worth the engineering time either for all that and just give the information to everyone. Um, yeah, so then a good question I saw is will we, this is about kind of like thumbnails, will we see impressions, clicks, CTR, survey responses? Will that be public in the future? And then, or why are those ones private? I guess each of those might have different answers, each of those stats.
I think in general, we want to make a distinction between what serves the ecosystem immensely in terms of engagement and what an individual island or an individual creator would see about their island in a creator portal, for example. We don't want to kind of mechanically go down the road of every insight that exists in the creator portal now is public as well. We do want to keep that distinction because we think some of the information is a bit closer to how your core game design loop works, or a little closer to the actual creative processing. So specifically for survey results, for example, that's not something that we're considering. It's something that is quite we consider a bit too close there. We want to try and maximize what are the things that signal broadly and usefully what engagement looks like on an island basis, and that doesn't make the cut. When it comes to impressions and clicks, I think that's one that we discussed a bit. We opted to focus on engagement related stuff first, since that's really something that folks can control rather than distribution pieces first. But it's something that we've discussed, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that I get to double down on Louis. Like for the individual creator, those are available in Creator Portal for your own island. We just didn't think there was as broad a I don't know a learning from a community perspective. For example, on a click-through rate on a thumbnail, like it that it's we want that to be highly individual, and we don't really want people to copy each other on thumbnails. We have plenty of
Yeah.
problems with that to begin with. Um, that we're working to address. We want at the island level, once a player lands in your level, what happens? Like that's really what we focused on.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Pretty individual. I think just a couple more API questions, and we'll move on to the Discover questions from chat. I guess the last question is just, will we ever get segment level data, like region specific CC or retention? Is that in the plans at all?
Yeah, that's what we're hearing a lot of. So how exactly that segmentation work? Is it per tag? Is it per region? Is it per platform? How that segmentation work? Something we have to figure out. But we're hearing a lot of that, and we realize that that's a pretty core component of understanding what the shape of the ecosystem is like, to understand what your audience looks like, what you got optimized for. So, yeah, it's something that we're planning
I
on.
think in principle we would love to. I think there's some basic questions around um, uh, identifiable information in general. Like that we want like obviously we want to give ecosystem level um, feedback, but we can't give like play patterns for individuals, right? And so as we get more and more granular, like the check we have to go back to is that we don't want people to be able to go through the API and by selecting like I don't know like tycoon players in some random place that also do this and also do this and also do this and did that within this time frame that you can narrow it down to too few people, right? It would like that doesn't make any sense. So that's really what we're weighing out is like privacy is paramount.
Yeah.
So this is not meant to find anybody and sort of target anybody. It's meant to give insights. But I personally think like we need to get close. Like regional tastes have developed like very rapidly, like in the last 6 months. And a lot of it has to do with that we're better at a discover level of featuring in clusters of like people in your area. Like that it's a region in or it's in like a row in Discover. It's been very successful in the sense that people like content that's made for that's made for their language or made for their particular taste in games or whatever. So yeah, I think it would be an important variable to get in at some point. We just don't have it yet.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect. And this is just all evolving, guys, and it'll get better and better. It's like they said, start from the portal, and CCU is open, and then all of this. So, I mean, super cool step forward. So,
In the
to
in the meantime, just to dip on this, in the meantime, I really do encourage folks to try and slice and dice this in ways that aren't as immediately obvious. The data points that we have put out there, if you start digging in, if you start doing some pattern matching along the lines of this type of genre, this type of game seems to have an abnormally high favorite and recommend rate, and it seems that there's a player base, but it seems that the retention rates are really low. That is a signal potentially that there's an opportunity in this space to do something, that the demand is there, but that the supply isn't there. So if you try to slice this, more data, it will always be better. And we're going to be on this journey to try and provide more and more insights. But I think play around with this, and you'll be pleasantly surprised at what you can get out of this.
yeah, I was seeing this question. I didn't ask it. It was like it was personal. I was like, what do you guys want to see with this data? But I think what you said is the best answer. Is like you guys. It's kind of like the community. Like, what do you guys want to do to enhance your games? You can use this data. It's kind of individualized. But I guess I can ask that is like, do you guys want to see anything specific that community use, or like, are you really excited for something very like in the future? It's pretty broad, but yeah.
I'll I'll, I'll start. I hope to see um, like new genres spring up that I think will be really successful in Fortnite because we've seen like a few attempts at it here and there, but it kind of sprung up and died off. But I think there are genres that have big opportunity that lie away from like sort of core battle royale gameplay that our players are responding very strongly to. It's just difficult to see it but you should be able to see it now. So I think I hope to hear from creators like in a couple of months' time that we we expanded what we do now because we feel like we can invest in making this awesome whatever it is. Like I'm not going to say a genre because I don't want to look like a fool here. But like random genre that they were passionate about, but they just didn't know if it was going to work. And before getting some signal, it's hard to commit development resources and spend your time doing it when if you don't have a clear sign that players actually want this.
And this is partly our fault. Like being unclear with where those opportunities are in the first place in the ecosystem means that that leap of faith is huge. And like the way I think about it is for every unmet opportunity in the ecosystem because of lack of awareness of its existence, there's very likely a player that is waiting for that experience to be built in the first place, and there's very likely a creator that is not taking the leap in building that because the signal isn't there. So,
Yeah.
very similar to what Sachs is saying is, uh, I look forward to seeing people discover the hidden gems that aren't as plainly visible when you just stare at a CCU, you just stare at a top ranking. That all of that signal disappears there. So, I look forward to seeing what gems get dug out.
I think there's also like an element of creators calling us when we don't pay attention to the things that
That's true.
clearly are bubbling underneath the surface. Like we only see so much, right? We come at it from a I don't know, from a very like looking at like trying to look at the whole playing field. But there's often trends that we miss. Like we missed like how regional content really was because we just didn't have the tools. Once we got the tools and we could see it, go, oh, we really need we really need to have a portion of Discover that focuses on what's local to you. And once we did that, like you can learn what's the top 10 in all those areas completely change. Because it felt like local content got a chance that it just hadn't had before. And I think there's going to be more like that, where we are informed by 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 people showing us, look, like I'm like look at this cluster of gamers. Like they're very loyal to the genre, but there's in Discover there's no way to grow the genre because it doesn't pop in any of the regular categories. But retention, for example, is off the charts.
Yeah, no, that makes it makes a ton of sense. Hoping that some of those maps show. I was gonna now, after 30 minutes, talk about the new Discover article you wrote. I didn't get to read the whole thing, but if you guys talk about that for like, I don't know, maybe like 2 or 3 minutes, and I'll answer some questions some people had on that.
Yeah, of course. Do you want an intro to it of what it is and why we did it? Or
Yeah, yeah, the Discover
okay.
article, that'd be great.
Okay.
Sorry, sorry.
Um, yeah, I think similar to data transparency on in an individual island level, we I think we've reached a point where we feel really we feel it's time that we become more and more transparent also on like a very important part of this is like what algorithmically discover features like when you go to the tycoon row, but what exactly is it that we that's in that query when we do that. So um, it's I would call it the first step. Like in my perfect world, we would publish the query like directly and and be done with it because there's it shouldn't be secret. Um, I think we still have a like what is countering that transparency right now is as a lot of people have have told us that there's rampant copycat behavior in the ecosystem that we're trying to combat really fast. We're trying to get better at it. Like botting, for example, was I would say through the early parts of this year was really like was coming on heavy until we could figure out like a systematic way to combat that. We can now we've squashed it down to where we don't believe it's distortive anymore. But it was for a period, right? So every time you're transparent, you open the door for you, but can people use that for not for positive but for negative purposes? And I think from a discovery perspective, we have enough of the elements in place now that we feel we can show more clearly like how Discover is constructed without the downside, like where just you have the upsides. We don't want creators to say, why am I not getting this? Like, why am I not getting featured? I thought I would had a game that resonated with people, but I don't see it in Discover. And sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's just not that obvious. So we hope that with more sort of straightforward data and straightforward, like this is how Discover is composed, the end result is that as a creator you can look at, oh, these are the knobs I need to tweak in order for me to like get into a top five in tycoons. This is what I need to do, or in order to stand out in Walking Dead, this is what I need to do. Um, and that would be Like the perfect scenario for me would be that. Um, so what else in there? I think the other thing that that leads us to like being transparent with Discover is really important right now. Like we published in Creator Portal not too long ago, the where you can see your snapshots of impressions and click-through rates and all that. That without like creators having all the elements to look at, this is how I'm performing at my island level. Look at how Discover is composed and look at with data at the rest of the ecosystem. Like hopefully you can construct a full picture that says, oh, like again, like I'm gonna put all my effort in this area because I think this is where I can get stronger. Or I just see nobody's looking in this direction. I'm gonna go in that direction. I'm gonna go own this. Um, like, but you need all three. You need data transparency, discover transparency, and like business insights on at your island in order to make those decisions. So we're trying to do all three at the same time. And there's a couple more elements that are coming, but they're all focused in the same direction on just creators believing that it's worth building a business in Fortnite. Like that's really how I want to boil it down.
Awesome. Yeah, so for that Discover article, I think I see really two common themes. There's this you don't count idle players if they haven't moved for 60 seconds, but people had very specific questions around that. So one example is when playing a hide and seek or prop hunt, you're going to generally stay still, maybe even more than 60 seconds. Are they still counted as a player even if they haven't touched their controller or keyboard that whole time? And also like when you join in progress in the game and you're idle, does that count? Because you're just watching for 60 seconds, you're not touching anything, you're kind of just watching people. Like how did those people get counted, or are they not counted? Are they counted as the idle player there, or is that too specific?
Hmm. I'll get an answer while we're on your specific question. I can't answer that like with any degree of certainty.
Yeah.
Um, like about like what is signaled to the player through that. Like the aim is AFK. I do not remember. I can see I got an answer already. Um,
Yeah, that's a very specific question. So just wondering if you had that off the top of your head.
well, like even in a prop hunt game, like if like any camera movement, any like any chat that's happening at the same time, anything you're doing, like as a lifeline to the game, sends a non-AFK signal. Um, there's a couple of things. I'll ask a couple of questions. If I'm quiet, it's because I'm typing.
Okay, no problem. But
Because
maybe that's
I
a
have questions
sign.
myself.
Yeah, maybe that's a sign in your prop hunt games. Like as a prop, you make them do something. But okay, so no clear answer on that, which is totally understandable. Another Discover question. Do maps that never appear in any rows still get the 50,000 impression test? And are search impressions counted? Like from like a TikTok, for example, if they search up the game, does that count as one of those impressions when it's first released?
Do I say that again?
Okay. And this is probably two questions actually. Do maps that never appear in any rows still get the 50,000 impression test? And I think you've answered this before. I think it's yes. They just,
Yes, they do. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
they do.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
And then
but like for example, like that's a like it's not like you press publish and then immediately gets 50,000. It goes into a queue, and then within the next X number of hours, days, it'll go through, and you will see it in Discover. Like that's why we wanted to create a portal because you don't like we want it to be known when that test happened and how it happened. So that's one. If you have followers, like as a creator, then like it'll appear much sooner in the new from like new and updated or from creators you follow. So we still believe that like that Discover is all good and fine. The primary way that people will like see your new content as a established creator will most likely be followers of your content, right? And we've been talking to, I guess we've rolled it out, and people have been growing their follow account and asking them, what do you see different when you publish a new island now? And the biggest difference is that they get players much earlier than they used to. So Discovery, I look at it as almost like it's like a litmus test for like the general YouTube front page, you know. But the like what matters more to anyone, I guess, as a content creator, like a creator in general, is no, I want my followers to know immediately when I come out with a new island or update my island, and that's why we keep redirecting people to the most powerful thing you can do is to focus on growing your follower account, because they would like those. That's the most direct signal you can send to us that like put it into a row when you come out with an update and don't rely on the Discover doing the sort of the pulse testing we do.
Okay, yeah. To clarify on the second one, so do search impressions count? I think they were saying is like, so you have that discover the 50,000 impressions, but like, what if they like search and saw your game? Would that like count as one? They see it?
I'm I'm reading through all the AFK stuff, like
Oh,
also
they
about it in the internally. So it essentially, if you do any action in that minute counts, and the next minute counts. So it ends up being that you can like anything you do in like within a couple of minutes will make it count. And when you do an action, you immediately count again. So it's meant for being truly AFK, like for just like XP farming or that sort of thing. It is meant to it's meant to capture any action you do inside the Fortnite client that it doesn't have to be a game specific action. Will make you active again.
Okay, I think that's super helpful for a lot of people. They all have these big questions, so I think that might actually change how a lot of people are making their stalling moments in their game. But yes, sorry, I was just looking at some of these questions here. Um, will ratings on maps be public in the future? So CCU is public, but is there a reason ratings haven't been, or do you want to hide that for a specific reason?
Um, there's not I we want there to be some qualitative rating to be active. Yes. I think what's really difficult about like ratings is like looking at comparables, like other places where content is rated and where ratings are public. They converge on a very, very tight band. Generally, like that's just kind of what happens. And if they're public, then the solicitation for ratings like distorts it quite dramatically, like really fast. So we're trying to find a way that like right now I think we ping every on an average every 100 plays or something like that to ask people if they had a good time and ask specific questions, and we pull them up like behind the scenes. We've tried to toy with like how could we represent that in a way that helps people make better decisions. We haven't come up with exactly how we want to do that. That doesn't incentivize something we don't know how to curb again. So there's a long way to say we want it. We don't have the perfect solution yet, but
Yeah,
hope within like the not too distant future that'll be qualitative, not just quantitative. Like CCU is just a quantitative way to say a lot of people are here. It doesn't say anything about, but they came here because of clickbait. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
like if we could marry those two things together, I think it'd be much better.
And I think you get signal from other platforms out there on how difficult it is to implement in a way that's healthy. Um, pick your UGC platform. There'll be a fluctuation on how ratings have actually happened on that platform over the past 5, 10 years, 15 years. But we are leaning in the direction in the sense that even going back to the previous conversation of API here, the fact that we're starting to expose more favorites and recommends and things like that more publicly is we do want to lean in a direction of getting that qualitative signal as well. We just want to do it in a way that is clean and doesn't actually end up with an outcome that doesn't benefit anyone.
We'll give a plug also for the people that go into UE Fest, the Discover Talk. I'm going back and forth with Joey and Kent that I believe are doing the Discover Talk. They will be talking about the AFK, like in particular, if there's a lot of interest for it, then yeah, makes sense. Like our goal is, and we've looked a lot on, yeah, but does that catch particular game types where you don't, where it's sort of natural that you would not have action for a period of time? We don't believe so, but um, that's like in the spirit of transparency. They'll cover it in the Discover Talk. We're doing it on RealFest next week.
awesome. Yeah. So back to the idle question. There's two comments. Just double checking. Is that the same counted as spectating? So when they're spectating, there's nothing they can really do. There's no like. There's really nothing you can do while you're spectating. What Do you
Well,
have an
we
answer
are
for that?
doing like because you're moving your camera,
Okay.
or you're doing
Yeah.
anything, like any input on your keyboard will put you out of AFK. But this is an excellent follow-up. It'll be its own slide deck. Will
I
be
think you're gonna
will
have a
be. Let's
lot
talk
of
about AFK. We'll do another live
uh,
stream about AFK. Yeah.
it's gonna be a lot
Oh,
of
like
maps.
believe
Like,
me, like
yeah.
internally, like we do it's really important for us too. Like so we're laughing about it, but no, like it's not a trivial thing to detect. Um, but like in games that are slower paced, like Lego Journey, for example, like it's like we spend a lot of effort trying to make sure that it doesn't get caught up in an idle filter, for example. Like we don't want that.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I know that's a tough one on the spot. And then one question kind of going back to the portal is, do you have an update on when real-time data will be available? The current delays make it extremely difficult to make timely adjustments, especially when trying to respond to sudden changes in discovery visibility.
Yeah, no timeline to announce today, but it's actively being worked through at the moment. I think again back to API, we want to get to that level of granularity. We're already starting to pump out 10-minute intervals now and hour intervals, whereas up until now your signal has been on a day level, and we want to try and carry as much as we can there on the Creator Portal, not only from the insights that are out with the API, but also all the other insights that you have in the Creator Portal that actually don't.
Can you like maybe expand a little bit about what's standing in the way of more real-time data, Louis?
I think it's a mix of data pipeline on getting to real-time data is a technical challenge that's very different than one where it's a daily interval. It requires a very different throughput of information when you do that at scale over 100,000 island, make sure that everyone can see. Um, it's a question of data accuracy in the design as well. When you're on that real-time feed, uh, when you start summing things up compared to day view, it gets more complicated. So really what we're optimizing for is, can we pull it off in a way that's easy to use in the portal and that doesn't actually slow the whole thing down and make it complicated? And can we do so with a level of accuracy that we can stand behind, that we feel good about, so that we're actually providing the right real-time signal and not something that might actually mislead you if we
Yeah.
rush. But it's something which we're trying through them.
I think in general, like data pipelines are maturing really fast right now. Like the data warehousing side of it, like I don't know, like to give you an example, Discover to like a year and a half ago, something like that, like operated on a much longer grain, meaning our ability to give any feedback on a new game that came out or how it's performing or something was delayed by hours, and we're much faster now on that. But it took a lot of retooling to get to that point. Our goal is real-time data to everyone to make real-time decisions, yes, but it's definitely a process. But the goal is to get there, yeah, for sure.
Sometimes the scale of the Fortnite ecosystem is is easy to forget when you're looking at a specific island. But on our side, we have to chew through really what is effectively hundreds of thousands of games and do so at a level that is acceptable. So we're getting there.
No, I think it always helps to like to contextualize it. We had like a bug the other day that was like 0.005% of people that have done XYZ calculated out. Well, that's about 4,000 people that couldn't play the game. When you think about 4,000 people that couldn't play the game, no, that's pretty serious. 0.005% doesn't sound like a lot. And I think that's we try to be as conscious about whenever we take a step forward that we don't get sort of lulled to sleep by the law of large numbers, and try to do things as thoroughly as we can.
That makes a ton of sense. And then this might be a question for Louis. The documentation for the API mentions that there's rate limiting in place. Is there any, do you have a specific number of loud of requests that, because it's not in the documentation, apparently?
First off, the API will tell you when it hits the rate limit, so you'll learn that pretty quickly. But I think if memory serves, it's something around like 100 requests a second or something like that. I'd have to double check though. But the short answer here is we specifically designed this in a way where you can hit it extremely frequently in a way that you can pull all information from all maps and not have to worry about rate limitations getting in the way. Hopefully that covers the need there. But I'll get back to you on the exact number.
Yeah. Hope, sounds like it'd be pretty hard to hit that. It'd be interesting too. And then this is back to
As
the,
quick examples, just to put a finer point on it, you know, Fortnite GG have integrated this, and they obviously scan through the whole ecosystem. FCHQ have announced that they're going to release analytics as well on there, and so those are the volumes that we're talking about when it comes to hitting all this stuff. So hopefully we're hitting the mark there.
Awesome. Um, and then for the article release about Discover, because the algorithm changes, you try to improve it, make it better, try things. Will that constantly be updated there, or like how will we know when you guys update it? Like if you want it updated this week, like how would we know? Um,
I missed the beginning of the question. Can you?
oh, sorry. So for this Discover article, it's very transparent, but like, well, if you change how the popular tab works or popular row works, like how would we know? Would you update the article? Would you tell us in like a version
The
2
goal
of the
is to update the
article?
article. Yeah, like any material changes will like should be updated. Yes, that's the goal.
Okay, awesome. Well, that's super awesome. That goes through every Discover question and almost 90% of the API questions. Um, yeah, some of the questions now are like very open-ended. Like, how do you expect the data API to evolve in the future? And then how do you uh, see this affecting large creators and small creators? So these are pretty open-ended questions. I don't know if there's like real set answers to this, honestly.
I don't think the needs are different from big creators and small creators in that um, if you're just mildly curious or like a one person creator versus a like a larger creator, like the questions you have about like how to be successful and how to build what you want to build and how to find the players that would like your content, I think are the same. Like they're fundamentally the same. How do we see it developing? Um, I would imagine that we will find useful insights that we will include into the API over time. That said, like a goal is not to release a new variable every week or anything like that. Like the goal is to focus on the stability and the speed of it, and then have useful things come in, but not sort of dribbling it out and like at all times. We don't think that's necessary. Like I think there's a finite amount of insights and data that we use ourselves for operating Battle Royale that gives us a pretty good insight into what we can do. And from a create like and these are ecosystem wide data, right? Like you still have the stats device as an individual creator. I think what you're gonna see is like pushing hard is to increase your in-island understanding of your particular game, um, and the sophistication of you understanding player behavior on your island yourself. Like we're going to focus on that. So the data API is for broad ecosystem insights. Stats devising and creator portal are both for like your individual island and your individual business and your individual focus.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
I think from my side, real briefly, the API evolution aside, I'm really excited to see what manifests out there in the industry as a result of this, be it new analytics toolings, new analytics integrations, be it other UGC platforms, taking a look and taking a cue of being, okay, maybe we should start opening up as well this kind of insight. I think that's what excites me a lot, outside of like the feature drops that will happen along the year, is what does that manifest into for the for our own ecosystem, but also for gaming industry, and hopefully this pushes us into the right direction.
Okay, awesome. I think I have one last question, and then just for the background, there people are very curious about the spectating, like because you can't move in spectating. So maybe that's another question to answer for another time when guys have more concrete answers to answer the community. But another good question. So this is the last question. Are there plans to expose accolades and other in-game events to the data API, not just through the portal, like if you opt in, authenticated, or otherwise, the future?
Not immediately, but it's something that I'll take back to think through what would be a use case there that would be beneficial for like ecosystem wide sharing versus your own. That's really the balance every single time. It's like, is there value at an ecosystem level for everyone to understand these, or are we going deeply now into something that has high value to a specific creator and their design, but not so much to an ecosystem lens?
Yeah, no, I think that answers it perfectly. All of it's evolving, but
Part of
Yeah,
it getting
so
it out before Unreal Fest was to like for people to chew on it, and then we have a chance to meet with a ton of creators next week, like to hear like what did we miss or what would they like to get insight into. I think it's a lot easier to have a discussion when we've had a chance to like to sort of take the next step, and when people come back and go, that's all good and fine, but like you're not solving my particular problem here. So there's a bunch of us that will be there in Orlando to like basically to listen to like are we did we hit the mark or are there things we still need to do?
yeah, that makes perfect sense. And that was the last question. I think both the Discover article and the Data API are just awesome. Like so much positive feedback, really no negative. So I think everything, like
You need
this
to
was a
work
great
harder for the
discussion.
negative then.
This is great for me. Super insightful. I think, um, yeah, hopefully the chat got a lot of their questions answered. Hopefully I did an okay job. And yeah.
How are you gonna use it?
How am I going to use it? Well,
Yeah.
for my game, I want to compare myself to other party games, and whenever I make a new game, so we just made a freeze tag game, so I want to compare myself to other tag games like Zombie Escape. How do we compare? Where do we need to like improve to be like in the same tabs as them or better than them? Realistically, that's my plan to just how can I improve my game? Like where are my games like need to improve to get to the rows that we need to be in? Because our game is has a good retention, we know that, but we want to increase the stats where it's not doing so well. Look at
Okay.
that.
Well, that's kind of an ideal example. Yeah.
Yeah,
Think like what we see like as a closing thing, like what makes strong games in Fortnite is iteration. Like it's rare, so rare that a game comes out and right off the bat has like banging statistics. But like over time, like is really where you make your mark. And I think that's like this very much gained towards like, can I make that next iteration? Do I know what I want to do next? Am I doing it? Do I feel informed as I try to put in these new retention mechanics or whatever it is? Like, does it move the needle? Um, I think that's our goal is like people invest in the iterations because really, from a player perspective, that's where success lies.
definitely. That's how I think most people are gonna use it, and it's like super exciting in the future for all our maps, especially like new maps too, to like see where yours stacks up against like some of the if you make a tycoon, like what do you need to do to be in like that top six tycoon row? Like what do they all have in common? There's no second guessing. It's like this is what they have. Like
I think the things like what has surprised me, like we've run a bunch of queries, right? Obviously, as we're doing the data, is there are games in the ecosystem that from a session and retention perspective do better than Battle Royale. Like that's like I think that's just incredible. Like because like it's I don't know like our core games like have been for 7 years incredibly successful, and we take great pride in just making a game that players want to come back to. But there are people that do better jobs than us. I think I think that's awesome. Like it's fun to see those pockets of just like people that have honed in on their audience and are just like they're just doing an incredible job of making players happy.
couldn't have said it better. That suit.
All right, thanks for
But
hosting.
yeah, no, thank
Thanks
you
for
for
this.
letting me host this. I'm hoping chat's happy, but thanks guys for answering all those questions.
Yeah, likewise. All
All
right,
right.
see you in Orlando,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yep, I'll see you in Orlando.
Bye.
I